Welcome once again to our show, and thank you for watching. I want to thank everyone who makes the show possible. Pops, Bill Gadomski, who makes almost every show possible here at CAN TV, and of course the Illinois Committee for Honest Government, that's one of the sponsors of this show. And this is Frank Avila, your host, but I most want to thank our viewing audience because it's you who make our show possible. And I have Gilbert Villegas, who's a candidate for 36th Ward Alderman in the city of Chicago, and a Marine. So we should say a big Semper Fi, and all our veterans who are watching and active duty or reservists. We have a fellow veteran in the house, as am I. Of course, I was U.S. Army Reserves. Also, did some time on active duty. I had a relatively easy physical job as a JAG attorney, but I did a lot of good for wounded soldiers and helping soldiers with their legal issues. And of course, a Marine, did it the hard way, right?
That's right.
How long were you in the Marines for?
I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years.
4 years.
During Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm.
Now, did you go overseas?
I sure did.
Okay, so combat veteran?
That's right, that's correct.
And you have your combat infantry badge then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, CIB. See, we got a very accomplished veteran in the house, combat infantry badge in the house, and Desert Storm 1.
Correct.
Okay. And you may know my friend Pedro Ferral. He was over there as a Marine, junior. Well, a lot of good guys from there. And so, so you had a lifetime of service then, starting as a young man then in the Marines.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay.
You know, where you're from. Tell us about you. Who is Gilbert Villegas?
Absolutely. So, Gilbert Villegas, candidate for Alderman in the 36th Ward, Marine Corps veteran. I also was a union steward for the Teamsters, where I represented drivers and dock workers, making sure that their workers' rights were being upheld.
Was that for which company?
Well, it was with Alpha Baking Company.
Okay.
But also, I was actually employed with the Teamsters as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Was that 705?
No, 734.
734, okay.
Yes, sir.
So union man,
Yep.
working guy, blue-collar guy, and a veteran. And you kind of morphed into government and some more white-collar type of fields, too.
Absolutely. And so during my tenure as a Teamster for over a decade, for nearly a decade, rather, an opportunity came up in the Illinois Department of Transportation where I was called an Equal Employment Opportunity Officer, and then quickly moved up the ranks and ended my career as a Deputy Director with the Illinois Department of Transportation. After 5 years with the Department of Transportation, I was recruited by an organization called HACIA, which stands for Hispanic American Construction Industry Association. And so
you may not know this, but my dad was one of the founders of HACIA.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, my dad was one of the founders, the original members of HACIA.
That's why I think that's why I like your dad then.
Yes.
So I did that for 3 years. I was the associate director, introduced legislation, and actually got 2 pieces of legislation signed into law. And I did that for 3 years, like I said, representing over 300 companies. And I caught the attention of the governor. At that time was Governor Quinn. And he recruited me to his administration as the chief of staff at the Capital Development Board, where I oversaw a staff of 140 people, $25 million operating budget, and a $3.9 billion capital program successfully.
All right. So you have blue-collar experience, white-collar experience, veteran experience, and also union experience. And then you've been union and management also.
Correct.
And a big budget, big staff. So an extremely well-qualified candidate for alderman because you have a variety of experiences.
That's correct.
And of course, as a Marine, you know how to be polite, get up early, yes sir, no sir, be on time, in the right uniform at the right place. They said that was always 50 or 90% of
Absolutely.
Your job, being at the right place at the right time in the right uniform, but also physical fitness, punctuality, hard work, diligence. We need more veterans in office and people with the skills that I think veterans bring.
Right. Well, at this time, where the city council is losing a veteran, Alderman Balser, who was a big proponent of making sure that veterans issues were at front and center. And so he introduced an ordinance that I was a big proponent
now,
of.
Tim Cullerton, I think, was also a National Guard or reservist, so we're losing him too.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's two veterans. And Alderman Balser introduced an ordinance that allowed for companies that were veteran-owned companies to joint venture with prime contractors, and they would get 30% of the contract. Right. So I think those types of initiatives in City Council, we need to make sure that we're addressing those issues with veterans, and really small businesses as well.
Okay. You know my friend Chris Raphael?
Yes, I
Yes,
sure do.
he's done a lot of good stuff with veterans housing.
Yep.
He's a very good guy, and I see that he's posted some of your stuff, so that's why I know he's worked with you in the
Yes,
past.
yes, and actually he was working on a project that we were trying to get behind. Chris is really working on a project that the Obama administration wants to eliminate homelessness for veterans, and that's something that I am all for. So that's definitely, anytime you're talking about helping veterans, I'm there.
Now, it's a new map, a new ward.
Correct.
The ward boundaries changed, so it wasn't the old 36th ward, which was represented by Alderman Sposato, and then previously the famous 36th ward organization, Alderman Banks and Senator James DeLeo.
Correct.
What are the boundaries of the new ward?
Right. Well, so if you take a look at the new boundaries, you'll look at the southeast corner is by North Avenue and Costner. You may be familiar with the Cook's store. Then you take Narragansett and Fullerton and Grand as the north and south boundaries, and you go west, and then you hit Narragansett and Sayre, and then you go north, just by the Brickyard, and you go north to past Bell Park, real close to Shabona Park. Then you come east on Addison by the old Resurrection, which is now the Presence Hospital. So it's like a horseshoe shaped.
Okay. And what are some of the neighborhoods in the?
Right. So the neighborhood, you'll see the Belmont Cragen neighborhood, Hermosa Park. You'll see the Montclair, a little bit of Galewood, and in Portage Park as well.
Okay. And of course, there's a well-known Portage Park family. The Joyces, of course, one of the Joyce members is a firefighter and a veteran of the Army, Marines, and Air Force. Started out in the Marines, went to the Army, then went to the Air Force. All three branches, and a firefighter. And his son, with his same name, is a Marine who is a combat veteran in Afghanistan and also in law school now. A very, very good young man. And of course, one of the people involved here at CAN TV. And the Joyces have lived in Portage Park and other neighborhoods in what has been the 38th and the 36th wards.
Gotcha, yeah.
And they're strong supporters of you, of course.
That's great.
As is the Illinois Committee for Honest Government, which endorses Gilbert Villegas and is a sponsor of this show. Of course, I've worked with Gilbert on many projects, as is my father, Commissioner Avila, who's also endorsed Gilbert. And Gilbert is an outstanding candidate for office, outstanding. So there's no incumbent.
That's correct. Open seat. So
Open seat.
This doesn't happen too often, and so these are the times when you're really not offending the incumbent by challenging them, but it's an open seat.
So what are the top priorities for your ward?
Well, I'm running under an acronym that's called PEACE, right? So I'm public safety, education, accountability, city services, and economic development. And my public safety plan has earned me the endorsement from the Fraternal Order of Police. My economic development plan has earned me the endorsement from the Chicago Federation of Labor. As it relates to education, I'm a big supporter of neighborhood schools, but more importantly, students, parents, and teachers. My accountability and city services, I'll be using what's called participatory budgeting to really get the community engaged and let them be involved in some of the decision making as it relates to the expenditures of the menu money.
Okay. And you nested some of your endorsements. So why don't you give us a list of your endorsements?
Okay. So and again, in no order, just as they're coming to Commissioner Frank Avila, Commissioner Cynthia Santos, Congressman Louis Gutierrez, Cook County Commissioner Richard Boykin, Cook County Commissioner John Fritchie, Cook County Commissioner Louis Arroyo Jr., Representative Arroyo, Representative Linda Chapalavia out in Aurora, Senator Iris Martinez, Senator Sandoval. I'm trying to think who else. Alderman Nick Sposato, the current alderman, and Alderman Tim Cullerton as well.
Now, Alderman, well, that's interesting. Because Sposato and Cullerton are not traditional allies, so you're bringing people together.
That's what I've done. I mean, I'm a coalition builder. I want to work with people for the betterment of the community.
And you've done that.
Absolutely.
And Alderman Sposato, of course, Alderman Cullerton, who was a veteran, I know a reservist, I want to say Air Force, but I'm not sure. And of course, you do have George Cardenas, who's a Navy veteran.
Oh, okay.
A Navy veteran. So you do have a few, but the biggest advocate, there'll be only, I think, one, unless you, of course, hopefully you're elected, but Belcher was the only very strong advocate for veterans in the council. So I hope you pick up that torch for veterans.
No, absolutely. That is my plan. I'm a big advocate for veterans issues. I'm a big advocate for small business owners. I have a small business. I have a consulting company. So I understand what the veteran community needs, but also the small business community. Again, when I was at HACIA as the associate director, I advocated for small businesses and making sure that minority and women-owned businesses were participating on federal and state-funded contracts.
Okay, that's excellent. That's excellent. So you have a number of endorsements, and of course, Alderman Pizzato is the old 36th ward, but he's now running in the 38th ward, which portion of the 36th was redistricted in the 38th.
That's correct.
And then Alderman Cullerton is retiring.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, let's talk about one of the cores, public safety crime. What can you do to reduce crime? I mean, Chicago has, we have, I think, 40% more murders or 20% more murders in January than we did last year.
Wow. Yeah. So again, in the 36th ward, we're divided by the 25th district and the 16th district, and so the 25th district has seen about 4 commanders in the last decade, and so there hasn't been any stability. And so one of the things that I'm going to do as the alderman is, number one, work with the superintendent, whoever the superintendent is, to talk about getting stability at the 25th district. But also, I've already passed out, me and my volunteers have already passed out 1,500 we call police signs, having them displayed in the homes. We're trying to get the community engaged and to come out of their houses. We're going to be doing public, if I'm the alderman, doing public roll calls in these communities. I mean, we have a neighborhood on the corner of Mongo and Belden, maybe about 3 or 4 blocks away from the 25th district headquarters, all types of gang activities. And I'm saying, you know, the police officer, the police department is 4 blocks away. Why is there so much gang activity here? And the reality is that we just need to really start focusing some of those resources in these areas and to let them know that this community belongs to us.
Okay. Now, one of the biggest problems or even a crisis in government is the pension crisis. You say that you have a proposal or you have a plan to solve it. What is your plan to solve it?
Well, okay, so this pension issue is something that's been in the making for decades. If you think back, this pension issue started in Springfield. The fact that the city of Chicago was allowed a pension holiday, which means that the city of Chicago went down to Springfield and asked for permission to not make a contribution to the pension. And so we need to go back to Springfield, eliminate all that pension holiday discussions, and take a look at what's called the Fair Tax Bill. Senator Don Harmon has a bill that's been that wants to change the Constitution and kind of get a graduated income tax, and we need to take a look at what's called a Fair Tax Bill. Residents in the 36th ward will not be impacted by this bill. This is something that would generate tons of billions of dollars in new revenue that we can begin to take a look at focusing on this pension issue.
Okay. That sounds like a good plan, and of course it's a huge crisis, and we have missed a lot of payments, and we did kind of kick the can down the road, but now it's coming back in our face.
Absolutely,
you know?
Absolutely. These are some tough times, and the city of Chicago has 50 aldermen. You have a mayor, city clerk, and a treasurer, and that is one of the best advocates. That whole team is a huge advocate, and they should be down in Springfield advocating and making sure that this legislation, the Fair Tax Bill, gets passed to generate this new revenue, so that way we can begin to focus on paying down this pension bill.
Now, you discussed you mentioned participatory budgeting.
Correct.
Now, what is participatory budgeting?
Well, participatory budgeting is occurring in 4 wards right now, and what participatory budgeting is, it allows the community to assist the alderman in identifying which projects we're going to move forward with as relates to infrastructure. So every alderman gets $1.3 million to spend. It's called menu money.
Right.
I want to put aside.
And some aldermen don't even use their menu money.
Wow.
There's menu money at the end of the day, or
if they have it, I'd like to get it so we can use it in the 36th ward because of the new redistricting that occurred. There's been a lot of neglection. They've been neglected part of the 36th ward because all those aldermen have decided to use their resources in their new wards. So we have had issues with potholes, lights out, all types of infrastructure issues. So those aldermen that are not using that the menu money, I would love to see who they are so I can go ahead and grab some of those dollars. But participatory budgeting, what I'll do is put $1 million and let the community assist in identifying those infrastructure projects. I'll have $300,000 on the side for reserve, so that way, again, as emergencies come up, we'll have those dollars there to fix those infrastructure projects that didn't make the list. So what we'll do is, the way the ward is, it looks like a horseshoe. There'll be the northern portion, the southern portion, and the western portion. We'll have a committee formed by those boundaries, and then we will decide. The committee will decide rather which projects are going to be making the list. Once there's a list proposed, we got to make sure that it adds up to $1 million, and then we'll put it on a ballot via email, newsletter, paper, and we'll get it out there to the community and let them decide which projects. Once those votes are tallied, then we'll go ahead and fix those projects, and then that's getting the community involved. That's more transparent, more democracy is what we're looking to do with the 36th Ward.
Now, you also talked about education. What are your plans for education?
Right. So again, I'm a big proponent of neighborhood schools. In the 36th Ward, we have 2 high schools. We have the Steinmetz College Prep, and then we have the Prosser Vocational School. And so we also have Locke Grammar School, which is a great school. And so Locke and Steinmetz have teamed up, and Locke has become the feeder school for Steinmetz High School. Prosser Vocational School is really not a vocational school as it once was before. What I'm envisioning is, again, because of the endorsements that I've received from organized labor and some of the unions, I'd like to develop some curriculum, or let the unions develop some curriculum and bring some skilled trades to that Prosser Vocational. We're talking about electricians, operating engineers, iron workers, pipe fitters. There is a need to diversify the union workforce. And so with the unions developing the curriculum, in essence, we're paying for that training. Be like a pre-apprenticeship training program. And so those kids that don't want to go to college or are not geared up for college, they'll have an alternative of going to vocational school, learning a skilled trade, and those jobs pay really well. Again, as a deputy director at IDOT and a chief of staff at the Capital Development Board, I've seen some of these payrolls, and some of these folks are making $30, $40, $50 an hour. It's not a bad pay. And so again, we want to give them some options for those kids that are not going to go on to college with this vocational school. As an alderman, though, one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to donate a portion of my salary to start up what's called the 36th Ward Scholarship Foundation for those kids that want to go on to college. This General Assembly eliminated the scholarship bill, but they didn't eliminate the need. You got kids out there in the community that just cannot afford college. And so what I want to do is I want to donate a portion of my salary, start up a scholarship foundation. I'll chair that foundation so that way I can help fundraise for that foundation, get some money, and then only the kids from the 36th Ward will have the ability to apply for these scholarships. And then maybe that same committee from the participatory budgeting committee will be the decision makers. But again, I want to make sure that the resources are there to help these kids go to college too.
Are there parochial and private schools also in your ward?
Yes, there. Yes, there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now, will you interact also with the private and parochial schools?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Again, students, parents, and teachers are my priority, and I want to make sure that they have the necessary resources.
Okay. Now, what qualifies you best to be alderman in the 36th Ward? So why are you qualified, or why are you best qualified?
Right. Well, when we take a look at the other candidates that are running, I just have tons of experience, and
Are any of them veterans?
No.
So you're the only veteran running?
The only veteran, and I'm telling people, vote for the vet is what I'm telling people.
And are you no Marines running?
No.
You're only Marine,
yes,
only vet. Okay.
That's correct. And so I've knocked on thousands of doors, talked to thousands of people, and the support has just been humbling experience running for office. But what qualifies me is that I'm a fighter. I fought for this country. I fought for workers' rights. I fought for small business participation. I fought to change policy. I've changed law. I've managed budgets, $25 million operating budget, a $3.9 billion capital program successfully. And so now's not the time to send a person who's on-the-job training to the city council to represent the 36th Ward when we have these huge fiscal issues that are on the edge.
Now, how are you going to raise the revenue for the city needs? We hear all the time that the city's under budget, or they can't make this bill, or they're cutting mental health clinics, or they're closing schools, or whatever else it is. How will you find revenue for the essential services that the city needs to do?
Right. So right off the bat, again, 50 aldermen, the mayor, city clerk, and the treasurer, we need to get more involved in the decisions that Springfield's making. we are not receiving 100% of the income tax dollars that we're paying into it. In essence, we become a donor city. So we're getting 90 cents on the dollar back from Springfield. When you take a look at the transportation infrastructure dollars, we're paying over 50% of the dollars to transportation, to the motor fuel tax, and we're getting 45 cents on the dollar. Again, that's extra dollars that we can adjust from the infrastructure dollars that we're spending now, and we use the MFT, the motor fuel tax money, to go ahead and supplement that. And that's just two quick solutions. Then we're talking about, again, the fair tax bill. We've got to go down to Springfield and advocate for Senator Don Harmon's fair tax bill, a graduated income tax that allows those people that have been successful in Illinois, allow them to pay a little bit more.
Now, do you support a Chicago casino?
I do. Yes, I do.
Okay. And how would you envision that casino?
Right. Well, I'm envisioning the casino, obviously, in the downtown area or close to the downtown area. That's where a lot of the visitors that come in, they go down there. And so we want to make it as attractive as possible for people from Indiana. So we want to do reverse soliciting, right? So right now, everyone's going from Chicago to Indiana. We want to get those people from Indiana to come to Chicago as well. But Chicago is a worldwide destination. It's a global city. And so it just makes sense to keep it in the Central District area. But again, what I want to make sure is that as we're discussing this ordinance or legislation with the casino, who's going to own it, we want to make sure that there's the dollars that are generated, there is some type of revenue, sharing of revenue to make sure that the outskirts, the communities, the neighborhoods are receiving some of the benefits of that.
Now, some cities that have casinos, they haven't received the economic benefit because somebody goes to the casino, they eat inside the casino. If you go to Rockford, you go to Joliet, or not Rockford, Elgin rather, they look like there's no economic development in the downtown areas. I mean, Joliet doesn't even have there's one restaurant within the downtown area. So how do you get benefit to the community, if people are just stuck in the casino and they're eating and drinking and playing in the casino?
Well, again, because there's so many hotels and restaurants that are located in downtown, just makes sense to locate that casino around in that area. When I'm talking about revenue sharing for the communities, is that whatever tax dollars are generated, we will go ahead and reapportion it based on the 50 wards to make sure that everyone's getting a fair share of those tax dollars.
Now, what is the appropriate size of the city council for the city of Chicago? Do you think it's too big? It's too small?
Yeah, I think it's too big. I think that when you take a look at the state of Illinois, 12.8 million. There is 118 state reps and 59 state senators, 177 elected officials, and then we have the city of Chicago with 2.8 million. You got 50 aldermen. I think that there needs to be some discussion about reducing that number a little bit. And I'm not sure what the appropriate number is, but I would say between 30 and 40 aldermen would be sufficient enough to represent the wards.
Now let's talk a little bit about politics. What is your approach? How are you going to win this race?
Well, it's no secret. I mean, the reality is that I need to make sure that I have the resources necessary to get my message out. I need to make sure that I'm knocking on doors, making phone calls, make sure that I have the political support from the elected officials that are all elected in that area. I need to make sure that I'm working closely with organized labor. I need to make sure I'm working closely with the community organizations. Again, I've been around for quite some time. This is not only a Marine Corps veteran, but I'm also happen to be the oldest person running in this race, which is ironic. But I've made sure about talking to all the community organizations and ensuring that my network understands that I'm ready to become the alderman. And again, this is going to be about grassroots. This is going to be about execution. And this is going to be about making sure that I have the necessary resources.
Do you meet with the Chambers of Commerces?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because in the 36th Ward, except for the northern portion, which would have the Portage Park Chamber of Commerce, there is no, and the Belmont Central Chamber of Commerce, but really that Belmont Central Chamber doesn't really affect the residents of the 36th Ward as much, because again, there's only a small portion of that. Portage Park is the only Chamber of Commerce in the 36th Ward. And so what I want to do is create a 36th Ward, or not even a 36th Ward, but help and develop a Chamber of Commerce in the 36th Ward they could use my office as a business incubator. Again, because I used to run an association, I understand the not-for-profit side and what it takes to get a Chamber of Commerce up and running. But you have Fullerton Avenue, it's a major corridor, 50,000 vehicles a day drive up and down Fullerton. And there's a lot of vacant storefronts because there just hasn't been a concentration or a plan put in place to help those businesses grow through the Chamber of Commerce.
Now, your ward is majority Hispanic.
Yes.
But you told me you have Belmont Central, which is a Polish-American business district. You have Galewood, which is part of the old 36th Ward, which is a lot of Italian-American community.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very diverse ward, in fact.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, the ward is comprised of 66% Latino, 28 to 30% Caucasian, and then 6 to 4% other African-American, Asian that make up the 36th Ward. So you would say it's like the UN.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a very exciting ward. We're almost out of time, but what I want to do is if you could talk to our viewing audience and tell them, again, what your name is, your punch number, your office address, email address, and phone number.
Perfect.
To our viewing audience.
Okay, perfect. My name is Gilbert Villegas, Marine Corps veteran, Teamster. I'm running for Alderman in the 36th Ward. My punch number is 53. My website is real easy, www.gilbert2015.com. And my office is located at 3318 North Central.
Okay. And so if you have any questions, comments, even criticism, if you want to volunteer, help out, you can contact Gilbert Villegas at the information which has been playing on our screen the entire time. You know where if you're in the ward by the new map. If you don't know, maybe go on the Board of Elections website or call the Board of Elections, tell them your address, tell them your old polling place, and they'll tell you what ward you're in. And if you live in the 36th Ward, I encourage you to vote for Gilbert Villegas for Alderman of the 36th Ward, who's endorsed by the Illinois Committee for Honest Government, who's endorsed by Commissioner Frank Avila and many other notable elected officials and organizations. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you, Gilbert Villegas, for being on our show.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to thank my viewing audience and say goodbye and God bless.